Yes, hello, my name's Mike Lucas, and my wife Rhonda and I own the Ora Banda Historical Inn. It's a magnificent pub. It's just celebrated its 100th year, and the town of Ora Banda is affectionately referred to as the ghost town that won't die.
Ora Banda is located a 10-hour drive east from Perth or a 1-hour drive north from Kalgoorlie.
What brought you to come and live in a hotel in a ghost town in the Goldfields?
Michael's dad.
Michael's dad. Tell us more, Michael.
Basically, Dad had got to an age where he needed a bit more attention, and we were looking for something where we could involve him, and it was a good environment. We came from the hills of Kalamunda, so everything was very much up and down and a bit awkward for him. So we saw this advertised and basically came out by fluke to have a look at it, and we decided this would be a top spot.
No, Michael did. I was thinking more little country post office, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Every time he looked in the paper, this hit him in the face.
It was obviously meant to be. Yep. So did you regret the move, Rhonda, or do you like being here?
I like being here. Sometimes I hate it with a passion, but most of the times I love it.
I think that's part of the joys of owning your own business, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's it, yeah.
So how long have you been here now?
This is our 6th Ora Banda day.
5 years, 5 months.
Yeah.
Who's counting?
No.
So it's all very positive, and I mean, anyone who was here before we took over, they noticed the changes and all the different things we've done, you know, the extra beer garden and barbecues and brick paving.
Basically, 1911, a gentleman by the name of Alf Garnett succeeded in getting the licence to build a hotel for the Ora Banda region.
Today all that remains is the inn itself, the motel and caravan park, and about 4 houses in the area. The region has a constant population of about 9 people, and we have a constant turnover of staff here because we use a lot of backpackers, so we have people that work here that see a completely different lifestyle. We've actually had one young girl who flew from Germany, landed in Sydney, onto a plane to Perth, and then straight here to Ora Banda. So the culture change there would have been astronomical for her, and considering she left Germany in the middle of winter and came here in the middle of summer, the heat was astronomical. Since we have owned the inn, which is nearly 6 years now, we've had 4 weddings here, and it's quite terrific to see that happening in the gardens. We do various social functions for different clubs. The region has a constant population of about 9 people, and that swells on Ora Banda Day as part of the race round to nearly 3,000. So it definitely sees different changes, from very quiet and peaceful to very hustling and a very busy day.
Ora Banda Day is a great day to come out to the town. There's lots of activities, games, horse racing from the Kalgoorlie Racing Club with riders from over the state, topped off by the West Australian Symphony Orchestra under the stars.
The actual inn has been up and down, so to speak, since its initial building by Alf Garnett in 1911, and it unfortunately was left derelict through the late 30s after basically gold prices were so low everyone moved on. It came back to life again, and then it was let go in the 60s and resurrected and rebuilt and reopened in 1985. At that point it operated for approximately 5 years, and then Don Hancock, who was a ex-policeman, bought the inn. In 2000 there was an altercation between himself and one of the bike groups, which ended up in one of the bikies being killed, and Don Hancock was sort of considered to be the person who'd done that.
So they eventually moved back to the seat. Three of them were sitting on the seat, and William Billy Grierson was one of those. He was sitting next to other bikies. The shot rang out in the night, struck him in the back and pierced his body. He died almost immediately at that scene.
And the bikies then came back and retaliated by bombing the inn.
Hancock moved back to Perth. There was not a lot left in Ora Banda. Police continued to warn Don Hancock of the dangers he faced. He continued to ignore them.
After the last race, Don Hancock and Lou Lewis drove away, back home, back to Lathlane. By that time, Lou Lewis had driven the mere 2 to 3 kilometres back to Don Hancock's home, and they were in the process of just pulling onto the front verge when the power gel detonated, causing both of them to lose their life.
Elizabeth.
Social functions for different clubs. We have different events that are held. We've got the Amalgamated Prospectors and Leaseholders group. They're having their AGM and big training seminar next month up here. So the area will be sort of covered with prospectors. There'll be panning competitions where they're racing the clock to pan for gold. There'll be detecting competitions to see who can find preset targets in the ground. So we see a lot of different things happening, always very interesting. We're also an outpost for the Royal Flying Doctor Service. We're actually listed as remote, and they come out and do training sessions out here, and of course they invite any other the locals or even people who are touring to come and do a session and do some training. So we've had a lot of oranges injected here and they've all lived, so that's very good. It's a great feeling. I mean, you've got all sorts of lifestyles. It's one of those things where some days it's very quiet and very, very peaceful. Other days there's so many people through here you think you're living in a main town. But the general atmosphere is terrific. It's very laid back. You know, most people can pursue whatever hobbies they like. We were doing rocket launching Friday night here with model rockets. So something that's fairly restrictive to do in a metropolitan area, but out here because of this magnificent open space, it's something that's very easily done. Quad bike riding and trail bike riding are other things that are taken up. We have our clay pigeon launcher for clay pigeon shooting, which we can basically just do straight across the road. So there's a lot of freedom that goes with a place like this.
Office, the police station, the school, the churches, the three churches, the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church and the Anglican Church, all were brought from Paddington because Paddington closed up in 1906 itself. The last building was the Catholic Church, and that lasted to about 1974. It was pulled down, but all the rest, except the churches, all the rest of the buildings were burnt down, and that happened in 1934. Put in another state battery in 1913 at Ora Banda, and then that carried on right through to about 1986 when Brian Bird closed them down.
And they were reopened by Don Hancock.
Yeah. Actually, the person who actually built the hotel, Mr. Clason, he was able to obtain the battery, so when Don Hancock bought the hotel off Mr. Clason, the hotel and the and the battery went together.
We see different characters, we see a huge amount of gold, as there's still large amounts of gold being found in the region, and it's not uncommon for someone to have $40,000 worth of gold nuggets displayed on the bar. So life is very interesting, there's always something happening, and it's a terrific little atmosphere. Most of the land here is owned by larger mining corporates, but the majority of them are very, very good and allow the prospectors to go on and use their metal detectors to find gold, and the region is still producing a lot of gold. We've also got silver and quite a bit of copper, so there's not only the gold factor but a multitude of other minerals that are in the region. So some are being developed, some are for future development.
There's actually the old Ora Banda, which is about 5 kilometres north of Kalgoorlie, Ora Banda, sorry, and the new Ora Banda, which is there today. So the old Ora Banda itself actually was named, the actual lease was called Ora Banda, and that was on the 10th of August 1896. And it never really developed much, it was just only a few prospectors there, but two chaps by the name of Freeman Johnson, who had a mine at Siberia called the Bonnie Doon, they decided to mine it, and that started in 1906. And the actual old town only lasted a couple of years because a couple of chaps who were working for them actually were cutting timber down at the new Ora Banda area, and they came across some quartz floaters, and they followed these floaters up into a gimlet thicket, and they pushed the bark away and found this reef. And so that was the beginning of the slippery gimlet. And gradually over the years, only a couple of years, the town would develop down at Ora Banda, and the old Ora Banda disappeared. The government put in another state battery in 1913 at Ora Banda, and then that carried on right through to about 1986 when Brian Bird closed them down.
When was the new Ora Banda in its boom time?
I would say just before the First World War, because a lot of people went to the First World War from Ora Banda, and that was it. That really destroyed it. And
never came back?
Not to what it was, no.
Yeah. So it then became a ghost town. Was it just because of the lack of people?
Look, the mines kept on going very, very slowly, and then my grandfather was able to get the government to put a pipeline out to Ora Banda from Kalgoorlie, and that carried on from there. Yeah.
What is at the site today?
Very little. Just a couple of little houses here and there.
In its heyday, it was a town of over 3,000 people. Had several churches, a police station, schools, greengrocers, bakers, butchers, all the known shops, etc. you'd expect in it. We purchased it in 2005, so it's been up and down, open and closed. Apart from the very original owners, I think we're now the second longest owners of the building, so it's a great little pub. Here we go, enjoy.
Thanks, Mike, that looks sensational. Now, when you're heading off the beaten track through the golden outback, you're going to have a wonderful and surprising holiday experience. So what are you waiting for? Let the adventures